Hi, my name is Mark Yankovic, and in my Collaborate to Zero interview series, I'm super excited to be talking to Tim Cookson, who is a guru in the hospitality and catering world. Tim.
Hi, Mark. Good morning.
Like magic. Good morning, and thank you so much for your time this morning. I'm super excited about this conversation because there's a bunch of different angles that with your experience we can talk about, from entrepreneurship to industry expertise. So I'll give a quick intro to those that don't know. You're a serial entrepreneur. You started life in the merchant navy, put yourself through night school, got a degree in hotel management, worked your way up through the system, got onto the board of the Marriott and Sodexo, thought you wanted to do it all yourself, gave that up, started a company called Acquire, super advanced at its time, which was an e-commerce procurement platform, sold that to Compass, and then now founded and are chairman of Litmus consultancy, which is specialists in facilities management and the catering world. So you're an expert in the catering industry, but you're also an entrepreneur, and you've got big board experience. So very excited to have the conversation.
Wow, I feel exhausted hearing all.
I was about to say, did I miss anything out?
No.
So I mean, jumping right in, because there's so much to talk about. There's loads of chat about sustainability in the catering, in the educational sector. What are you seeing from your side that's actually happening?
Okay, well, I think the most clear change over the last probably 5 years has been the increase in the influence and power of the consumer. So we do a lot of work with all areas in the education sector, and the majority of that is involved in looking at forward strategies, introducing change, and so on. So one of the things we do as part of that process is we carry out what people will understand gap analysis. So we look at what consumers see as important and how satisfied they are. So generally, we start with a focus group of all stakeholders just to determine what is at the top of their agenda insofar as the service they're going to be receiving. And if I go back sort of 15 years, occasionally you would have something pop up in one of those focus groups around provenance, where food comes from. But generally, it was what you would expect: quality, value for money, and so on. And particularly in the higher education sector now, I would say at least 25% of what consumers are saying to us is important to them is around the environment, sustainability, and what have you. So that growing influence is making the service providers really sit up and appreciate they can't just pay lip service. They've got to genuinely look at what they're doing and what they intend to do to satisfy that requirement from consumers. And once consumers get a voice and start making change, it becomes rapid. So it's not just wanting change; they now want to know what the result has been. So they're not taking promises of change. They're seeking validity of what's been the benefit of that change. And I believe it will continue even more so. And that's in every sector, to be fair, but probably the higher education sector is more active than the rest, and that's because of the demographic.
That's fascinating. So 25% of consumers in the gap analysis you do are now kind of demanding that there is better provenance, better understanding of sustainability and the sustainability proposition. And do you think that's a high enough number? Because you talk about rapid change, and we need rapid change. Do you think that's a high enough number for for the higher education system to sit up?
Well, I think within that 25, it's got all the key factors. So, previously that would have been an afterthought. It would have been about variety. It would have been value for money. Now it's around how's the food packaged. It's not about what's being bought. It's who are we buying it from, and what are they doing insofar as accelerating how we all try and protect the planet.
That's brilliant. So it's going to almost scope 3, which is the suppliers and down the supply chain.
And then this is consumer driven, which is phenomenal, really, because I think we all know what we perhaps should do, but when it really comes down to it, we struggle. Once we've got that cohort demanding that those responsible for providing a service adhere to what they want, then you will see change increase dramatically. And
I mean, both in the the hospitality industry and in education, both of them are relatively cumbersome, big beasts. I mean, in my research, I saw that there's 2.5 million students in the UK, and when you kind of add that up into bed nights and into transportation and into meals, it's over 2 billion meals a year. Do you think that those institutions can move quite quickly? Are they dynamic enough?
Do you know what? I think probably the higher education sector is as advanced in what it's doing as any other sector, and that's due to the demographic. It's predominantly, vast majority, 18 to 21-year-olds. So they've grown up knowing that change is required and relating certain things which happen in the world to poor practice, but they haven't understood at an earlier age what to do. These consumers, this demographic, is arriving knowing what to do and is educating those responsible. You add that then to the research capacity and capabilities of the institutions they're in, and there's some great work coming out now, which is not just informing Luddites like myself, but really making it easy to understand. And I think that's the key.
That's great. So the universities are working with their already well-educated and well-informed students to drive change. No, that's
yeah.
So I mean, those institutions. I mean, is that, I mean, again, in the spirit of collaboration, are those reports being disseminated to everybody? Is there stuff that we can or the wider industry can pick up on and utilize?
One of the particular pieces of research I like is the 2018 University of Oxford did some really great research, and it's by Joseph Poore, Poore. But what they've done is they've simplified it. So we get PLC global sustainability statements and what have you, and it's impressive, but it's pretty heavy going. So if you look up the research I've just mentioned, so for example, I know now that if I have 2 cups of tea a day, my annual production of greenhouse gas is 30 kilograms a year. So 2 cups of tea a day, and that's because how tea is produced and so on and so on. And it relates it to a 78-mile car journey. Now I can understand that. I understand what it's like to do 78 miles. I like both lamb and chicken, but if I have that once a week, I'm driving 865 miles a year because I'm having lamb, and 272 miles a year because I'm having chicken. Now, to me, that just, people will say it dumbs it down, and I'm sure there's flaws in it, but it makes me think, and I can relate to it. And so and that's a classic, sort of, students will grab hold of that because they're intelligent people and they're passionate about doing things right.
So make the information relatable.
Yeah. Yeah, it's no good producing, these huge graphs and, thousands of kilos and everybody gets it, but, nobody relates it to themselves. And I think once we've converted the individuals, then the power of that and the consumer strength will be phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, whenever I get asked, I always say if you have 1 penny to spend, that's the most powerful thing, because whoever's selling you something wants your 1 penny.
Yeah.
And that can change everything. So switching to being a serial entrepreneur, and this is all about, we really need people to be disruptive and to scale. And I know as an entrepreneur myself, it's a tough question, but what blockers have you had, and is there any advice you can give an entrepreneur who's trying to be disruptive to overcome them? Are there any simple tricks?
Well, I guess, the blockers are, in my opinion, is what I refer to as short-term thinking. So we got a problem, we got to solve it, and really, that, along with a perception that to do something properly and for the benefit of the planet is going to cost me a fortune. So you've got to get rid of those myths. And we're often asked by clients, both large and small, where do we start? It's basically the most common question, because they'll be referring to they've changed their packaging, they've done this, that, and the other, but they're sort of doing that without a plan. And if you want to go one end of the stream, there's the the United Nations Sustainable Development, and it's massive, and it's great, because what it does, it breaks all the areas we can all get involved in down into little components. And so if you're a small business owner or a large service provider or whatever, if you sort of look at that and say, okay, what can I influence? Yeah, I can't influence that, I can't influence that, but I can influence this. And then put a plan together and start small. So if you want to remove big bugbear with me, and very constantly coming into our work sphere, is that of reducing waste. Now, there's great technology out there you can use, or you can simply weigh the waste at the end of a meal. So you can do it in lots of different ways. But if you then communicate what that waste is, so people can realize there's a start point, and then continue communicating as that reduces, then you're achieving something. And I think if you have that plan and you can see you're achieving, you'll move on to the next area to look at. I think if you try and do everything all at once, you'll fail. It's just too big a gig to sort of get your head around. So have a plan, and definitely get in there and affect what you can influence.
That's great. So don't start without a plan. Follow the plan, communicate the journey, and then move on to the next. Don't try and do everything at once. That's
involve
advice.
Involve your consumers. So last year we had X number of tons of recyclable packaging waste. This year we've got less. So everybody's actually contributed to that, and everybody's starting to benefit. And then that gets that positive motion in working for everyone.
Part of the journey, yeah. Get involved consumers and make them stakeholders, pretty much.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's the scale. You kind of slightly answered one of my questions, which is, do you think this will be client-led, or do you think it'll be government-led or legislation-led?
Well, I guess the real, it's always a lot easier to do something if you must do it. So the government has a role to play, and again, I would urge them to adopt the sort of more simplifying the message approach. We've got clients who are already looking at what they're going to have to do when offsetting arrives, because they're convinced it will. So their questions to us are, how do we calculate what we've got to offset? And there's lots of different clever ways you can do that. But I think if there was some, simple and easy to understand way, which builds, it's got to build and cover everything. But I think we just have to wake people and make them understand, and that will probably start with government intervention. Are they going to start taxing landfill? If they did, that would focus a lot of attention on the producers of landfill. Won't be popular, but you know what? Real change ultimately at the outset never really is, until we get used to it, and then we see the benefits, and then people have become ambassadors of that and advocates for it.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. We need a level playing field, and the only people that can do that is government. So government need to legislate and give us a level playing field, and then we can all move forward. I think that's
sensible. And then we need to ensure that what we don't do is do something crazy and get it wrong to begin with, because that will push us back, so much more. But I think society, as well as the business community, we're waiting for it. We know it's going to happen. It's got to happen. So let's get together. Let's start out that plan. You asked me about a business owner. Whether it's a business owner or a cabinet, let's have a plan and work towards it. Communicate success. That's always the best way of achieving greater things down the line.
Yeah, it's a great. I mean, to say that society is actually already waiting.
Yeah, I believe so.
And everybody wants to get on with this, but they're kind of just waiting for somebody to almost fire the starting gun. I mean, I know COP's only a matter of a weeks away, but any views on what you think or hope might come out of that governmental meeting?
Hopes. I think that's a strong word. There'll be lots of dialogue. There'll be lots of conversation, and I think they'll continue with the sort of shock and awe type tactic, which is has merit. I think when when you can actually see something. I saw something some time back, which was basically, there's a big screen. There was every country in the world was represented on it, and they showed in 1920 how many companies were above the, their temperature was rising above the norm, and there was one or two little boxes flickering, and then it moved up to the 30s, 40s, and there was a few more boxes, and then it got to 2015. It's about 5 years ago when I saw this. The whole screen was red, and so looking at that change over that short period of time, when you consider history in general, that was wow. How can we have let that happen? So I'm just hoping that there'll be collaboration. We're a world. We all own one planet. We're not in continents. We're not in business groups and wherever. We're all on one planet. So that's where the collaboration starts. And if we move forward by some sort of governmental gathering, great. But it'll be what happens after that, which will be key.
Yeah, I think that's a great statement. We're all on one planet, and we can't silo ourselves thinking it's not it's not connected. It is all connected. Hopefully it's the starting gun that they come out with and give us the direction. I think that's clearly what we need. I mean, you, through your journey and through being the chairman of the union club, you meet lots of interesting people from all over the world. I mean, are you getting a sense more broadly through the kind of, I mean, certainly it sounds like at the university level, they're already adapting very quickly, but are you getting a sense from broader walks of life that this is a serious topic and people trying to address it?
Yeah, that research I referred to in Oxford. So I picked a cup of tea, which is quite low. Sadly, you can pick tea, wine, beer, and all the rest of it. And I have to say, everything above tea, I'm driving more miles than what have you. But no, there's, of course there is. There's, I think sometimes we cover issues with a slight level of cynicism, because the older you get, so if you like, the more you've seen things come up, and I use the word fad. This isn't a fad, saving the planet is the complete other extreme. So I think generally, whatever the age group, there's an increasing awareness that we can't just wait for other people to solve it. And incrementally, none of us can do a great deal, but collectively we can do everything.
That's brilliant. I'm writing furious notes. Collectively, we can make a difference. Perfect. Yeah, I mean, that's fantastic to hear. I mean, I think the notion of it's not a fad is really, really critical, and everybody joining on this journey. And I get the sense that it's interesting how people seem to be uniting behind a relatively close cause. I don't get the sense that government do, but I think the populace is very keen.
We've got to make the government realise that we're not going to be fobbed off anymore. Now, I'm not suggesting we hold up any more motorways or anything like that. I don't buy into that. That's a sort of sensationalist approach. But we can talk to the government. There's hundreds of different ways we can get that message across, whether that's individually or as groups. And the more that noise increases, those who want our votes will start taking more interest. Facts. It's always been the way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. My magic wand question, and it's kind of two parts, because of your entrepreneurial experience and the hospitality and education experience. So, I mean, if we had a magic wand for hospitality, what would it be?
A magic wand. Okay, I think every business leader should sit down and talk to their teenager child. So just throw the parental "we know best" away and sit and listen to the younger generation, who are getting awfully frustrated. And I'm speaking from experience with my 21, who's educating me. So the magic wand, I don't think there's a I can't see where there's one button we can press and what have you. But if we all start beginning to understand a little bit more about what this is all about and task ourselves to do that, that's what I'd say. I'd say that my magic wand would make people listen more and appreciate what's there to be seen, but which we often walk around with blinkers on, because that makes life easier.
Well, that's brilliant. I mean, to listen, task ourselves to listen and understand. I mean, that'll education is everything, and the more we know, the more we can change behavior. And would you apply that to being an entrepreneur who's trying to drive into a totally new sector, which we need to disrupt in ways we haven't even imagined yet?
Yeah. I mean, if you're, slightly overused the word entrepreneur, but it's about being successful. And you're only successful if you come up with something you can find the rest of the world wants. So, those guys and girls setting out on life now and looking to be successful, look over the hill and see what is going to be the buttons to press down the line. And a lot of things which I grew up with and embraced, they're meaningless now. For us to go and say to a client, look, we can come in and save you money. 20 years ago, that would have got us a project. saving them money is dropping like a stone. It's about satisfying consumers. It's about, delivering what's important to people. And what's important to people is changing. So entrepreneurs should grasp that. And that's what every successful entrepreneur has done over history. They've looked over the hill and they've seen what's going to be what people want there and then.
Yeah. Nice. What's important is changing is absolutely right. From a asking questions around what are you seeing, or are there any people or any service providers or any businesses? And my question around brands that you like, things. Are there any service providers? Are there any businesses? Are there any exemplars that you can see, that you can share, that others can potentially be aware of?
Well, if you look at the big side, so if we're talking hospitality, excuse me, food services, take a little bit of time and go up onto the website of the big PLC providers, because actually some of what they're doing is phenomenal. They're not great at shouting about it, and they're probably slightly over wordy in promoting what they're doing. And yes, they're trying to sell themselves, I get that. But when you look at the scale of what they're getting involved in, then that's got to be good. I think technology is critical. So there's a great piece of software out there called WinNow, which is all around food waste. So going back to my earlier point, you can now communicate in an interactive way with your consumer group or the people you're providing a service with, and how you're reducing food waste, and more importantly, what's the positive impact of that. So that's great. And then, because I knew you were going to ask me, so see this little, see that?
What's that?
Well, this is a product called Kind, so you've got to be careful how you say it. But my lads is doing an internship around marine conservation and what have you, and they would only allow him to go out to his internship if he followed a lot of rules about what he could take with him and what have you. And because of their their key aim, clearly they didn't want lots of people going out with lots of plastic and so on and so on. And I just thought this was so simple, because how many times have I thrown plastic bottles of shampoo and things like that in my case and then discarded them without thinking about it? And this is just a bar of shampoo. And all of its packaging, as you'd expect, is recyclable. There is zero toxic runoff. It was cheap. It takes less room up in your luggage. I'm just thinking, do you know what? I haven't been looking closely enough. I've got to change my habit. And if just I can change one of my habits, and everybody else in the planet does that, think of the impact. So there you go. I don't know them from Adam. I don't have any shares in them, but I thought I'd share it with you. It's called Wind.
But Kind, shampoo.
Kin and then Kind. That's correct. Yeah, it's a shampoo bar.
Brilliant. That's superb. And books, podcasts, things like that. Do you think disruptors of tomorrow might be able to learn from?
I'm sure there are, Mark, and I do a fair bit of research, the one I've mentioned, but I would suggest we sort of, the book I would recommend is the book by Yuval Noah Harari called Homo Sapiens. Okay, it's not a huge amount around sustainability and whatever, but it just explains who we are and what a tenuous hold we have on a planet. And we've only held it for a tiny fraction of a time. So we're custodians, and he explains what will happen if we don't. And there's another book called The Next 100 Years by George Friedman, strategic military guy. Again, not a huge around environment and sustainability. He's predicting what's going to, so he started from 2000 and predicted what's going to happen in the next 100 years. So we're 20% of the way through it. In some of what he's predicting, you can see the impact he's suggesting will come about if we don't do anything. And so I think if you can get this general awareness, you change your stance. And if you can change that, then you become greedy to do more things individually. So that's what I'd say. And they're both good reads.
Brilliant. Brilliant. I mean, change your point about kinkind and change becomes scale. I think that is the communicational piece. Tell people you're on the journey, get other people on the journey. You then get make them stakeholders. Then the little change becomes very, very big change very quickly, and we're all on the same journey. Absolutely fascinating. Absolutely fascinating, Tim. Really, really delighted to have been able to tap into your vast experience in both being an entrepreneur and being the guru in education and catering.
I'm not sure I'd go along with guru, but thank you, Mark. I enjoyed it.
Brilliant. Thanks, Tim. Alrighty, bye.
Okay, bye-bye.